The Sierra Nevada is a place of awe, a serrated wound carved by centuries, cloaked in stillness and danger. From the overlook at Bear Cliff Pass, it stretches forever colors changing by the minute, shadows folding into canyons where light hasn't touched in decades. Tourists gather here each season, smartphones raised, smiles fixed, but only a few venture down into the deep ravines. Fewer still come back with the full story. In May of 2014, a woman stepped into that vast cathedral of stone and silence and never came back. Her name wasn't on national headlines like some vanishings are. There were no aerial searches broadcast on cable news, no press conferences or media trucks parked along the road, no vigil with candles, no viral outrage. She simply vanished. No distress call, no final message. Not even a goodbye. Her name faded quickly from the public's memory, replaced by newer headlines and louder tragedies. But the mountain remembered. It always does. That morning she signed the visitor's log at the trailhead, tight handwriting, methodical. Solo trek, Rattlespine Trail, 2 nights, return Sunday. A ranger later confirmed her vehicle in the small gravel lot, its windshield collecting dust. A fellow hiker recalled seeing a woman with a dark olive backpack and a padded camera case swinging from one shoulder, descending the winding path with quiet certainty. And then, nothing. 3 days later, her car remained untouched. Park rangers checked her wilderness permit. A routine welfare check turned into something more. Her tent was located by the river, pitched with care. Her camp stove set up. A journal lay open on a flat stone. But there was no sign of her, not a single print beyond the camp, not a single item missing except for her camera. It was as if the mountain had swallowed her whole and smoothed over the ground where she'd once stood. The search escalated quickly. Drones, tracking dogs, even a low-flying helicopter swept the ridgelines. Volunteers braved sheer cliffs, calling her name into the echoing ravines. The river was searched for miles downstream. Still silence. No one knew it then, but this disappearance would become one of the strangest in California's backcountry history, because this wasn't just another hiker gone missing, it was the start of something else, something older, something the mountain had kept hidden for years, waiting for the right eyes to open it. And 10 years later, someone would. But first, there was Erin Maddox. Erin wasn't the kind of person you worried about. If anything, she made people uneasy in the best way. Fearless, fast-moving, unsentimental. She always seemed a little ahead of everyone else. At 29, she had the presence of someone twice her age. Her sister, Leah, once said Erin didn't take photographs, she hunted them. Like she believed they were hiding from her. She was a wilderness photographer, well known in the backpacking niche. Her work wasn't glossy or curated for social media. It was raw, unfiltered, no airbrushed skies, no fake lens flares, just what she saw when no one else was watching. Her camera beat-up Nikon with duct tape around the lens cap was practically welded to her right hand. So was her leather field journal. Every trip came with scribbled notes, light angles, barometric pressure, how the pine smelled before a storm. She wasn't careless. That's what people forget. Erin knew first aid. She carried a Garmin satellite beacon. She mapped her water sources, monitored elevation, understood the terrain. She often hiked alone, but never without telling people where she'd be. She didn't hike to prove something. She just preferred the silence. The Sierra trip was supposed to be another checkmark in her logbook, another series of golden hour shots for her next gallery submission. She planned to descend the Rattlespine Trail, set up camp beside the Fox Grove River, and photograph the cliffs at dusk. It was a route she'd studied for months. And she was ready. Or thought she was. Because people don't just disappear in the Sierra Nevada without leaving something behind. A dropped glove, a snapped strap, a breadcrumb of motion. But Erin did. Her equipment was recovered. Her tent stood undisturbed. Her boots were found neatly tucked under a flat boulder. Her camera, however, was gone. And one more thing, the spare SD card she always kept in a side pocket, missing. Deliberately removed. Those who knew Erin all said the same thing. She wasn't the kind to get lost. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe she didn't get lost at all. Maybe she found something and chose not to return. Or maybe, just maybe, she never had a choice. Because whatever happened along that trail didn't just remove a person. It cracked something open. And 10 years later, someone else would walk straight through it. The last known image of Erin Maddox is a grainy still from a ranger cam. Timestamped 6:42 a.m., May 18, 2014. In the soft, dusty light of dawn, she's seen adjusting her backpack straps at the trailhead. Her face is turned slightly toward the camera, her mouth caught mid-smile. Calm. Unafraid. Behind her, the canyon yawns, Waidea's silent beast in morning shadow. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Rattlespine Trail isn't for beginners. It's steep, sun-scorched, and largely unmarked beyond the first 3 miles. Most hikers avoid it for a reason, but Erin had prepped for it extensively. Her name was later confirmed in the backcountry log. Same signature as always, Erin Maddox, Rattlespine Trail, 2 nights, Foxgrove River Camp. No warnings, no signs of distress. Another solo Hikara man in his 50s told investigators he passed her about a mile in. She nodded, he said. Didn't stop, just kept moving. Looked like she knew where she was going. That was around 8:30 a.m. After that, the timeline dissolves. By noon, the heat in the canyon had crept past 95 degrees Fahrenheit. No clouds, no wind, just dry, crushing sun. And silence. Heat shimmered off the red granite, rising in waves from the stone. Somewhere beyond the visible bend in the trail, Erin Maddox disappeared. No more sightings were captured on the park's remote cameras. She never signed in at the ranger post below, never radioed, never called. By the time anyone filed an official missing persons report, 3 days had passed. That photo at the Rattlespine Trailhead Granny, time-stamped, became more than a last glimpse. It became a monument. A frozen portrait of a woman just moments away from erasure. Her friends clung to it. Her sister Leah printed it and carried it in her wallet for years. She looks like she's just beginning something, Leah once said, her voice distant. Not ending it. And maybe that's the most unsettling part. Erin didn't look frightened, didn't appear rushed or hesitant. She looked instead like someone entirely at home, like she was exactly where she wanted to be. And if anything strange had crossed her path that morning, she didn't show it. But the mountain remembers. And it's what the cameras didn't see next that unraveled everything. Erin wasn't careless. Her treks weren't impulsive weekend stunts for social media or some influencer reel. She planned everything with obsessive detail. Measured routes, marked terrain coordinates, exit contingencies, backup caches. Her trip into the Sierra backcountry was no different. In an email dated May 2014, subject line, Foxgrove Plan Erin sent her sister Leah the full itinerary. Leaving Friday early, Rattlespine Trail. Foxgrove River overnight at Lower Bluff. Might continue west along Basin Run for dawn shots at Raven Notch. Camping again, back out Sunday afternoon. You'll get a call that night. If not, raise hell. Attached to the email was a color-coded PDF. GPS coordinates, water cache notes, trail elevation profiles, camp zone permits, even a backup loop in case she pushed deeper. Erin knew the Sierra's terrain better than some backcountry guides. She'd studied satellite imagery, read old climbing blogs, watched helmet cam footage from previous hikers. Her gear was deliberate, light, essential. A 65-liter Osprey, Nikon D7000, 2 SD cards, 4 liters of water to start, a filter straw, compact satellite beacon, and her signature dark green field journal. Friends said she had a ritual. Every morning she sketched a rough map of where she'd been and where she intended to go. On this trip, she had marked the descent to the river with notations on sunrise angle show. The cliffs bled light over the bend at dawn. She called the phenomenon erosion light. She said it would be the centerpiece of her next show. When investigators found her tent days later, they confirmed it matched her notes exactly. Tent pitched facing east. Fire ring untouched. Sand flattened beside the tent flap where she'd clearly sat cross-legged, but her journal was missing. So was the camera. And then something else, something strange. Pinned to the inside mesh wall of her tent was a hand-drawn map, one of her own scrawled in the same ink she always used. It showed the river, the bluff camp, and a single curved line leading up and away from the main trail into an unmarked side canyon. 3 words were written beside the curve. Shortcut. Check tomorrow. Below that, in smaller writing, maybe light, a choice, a deviation. It was a line not included in her original plan, not shown in the GPS files or any of the trip prep notes she'd sent, and in the Sierra backcountry, one wrong turn can echo for years. 3 days after Aaron Maddox was supposed to return, a ranger named Elenita Trujillo was dispatched to check on a vehicle that hadn't moved all weekend. A deep green Subaru Forester, California plates, sat wedged into the corner of the dusty parking area. Its windshield was fogged from the inside. The dashboard map had curled in the sun. Inside, an empty water bottle, a rolled jacket, and a single cherry Twizzler left on the passenger seat. By late afternoon, 2 rangers, Trujillo and Colin Marks, began descending the trail in the dry heat, tracing Aaron's planned route. Around mile marker 7, they spotted a pale green tent tucked into a windbreak of cottonwood near the bend of the Foxgrove River. It looked undisturbed. The fly was half-zipped, one corner staked with smooth river stone, no signs of distress. But something paused. Frozen, mid-motion. Inside the tent, her sleeping pad had been rolled out but never unrolled. A titanium pot sat by the fire ring, filled with half-cooked quinoa and dehydrated peas. The water had evaporated, leaving a burnt residue scorched to the bottom. Outside the flap, her boots were positioned side by side, socks neatly tucked inside, her trekking poles rested against a sun-warmed rock. But Aaron was gone. Her pack remained. So did her food, medical kit, water gear. Nothing appeared looted or rummaged except for one thing. Her camera bag had been opened. The Nikon was missing. They found it several feet away, face down in the sand, battery intact, lens undamaged, but when the rangers popped, the memory slow empty. No blood, no drag marks, no signs of a struggle, no animal tracks, no indication of a fall. The site looked like someone had simply stepped away. As if Aaron had risen mid-meal, walked into the wind and never came back. As the sun dipped behind the granite wall, they radioed base camp. Aaron's name, once just a timestamp and a permit code, now carried weight, carried silence, carried a hole in the map. Later, when Leah was shown images from the rangers' phones, her eyes locked on the sketch pinned inside the tent. "She went somewhere," she whispered. "She chose to." But the direction that rough pencil line pointed into a narrow, dead-end canyon not marked on any recent maps offered no closure, just heat and shadow. By the time official search and rescue teams mobilized, it was too late. The mountain doesn't wait for permission to erase. At 6 a.m. on May 26, 2014, a white helicopter lifted off from Sierra Valley Airstrip, carving a path through a pink-washed dawn. On board, a ranger, a thermal imaging specialist, and 2 SAR volunteers who knew the region better than anyone. They would scan the terrain all day. They would find nothing. Not a footprint. Not a signal ping. Not a whisper. Rangers lifted off just after dawn, their manifest listing only 2 names: Lieutenant Keller and a single passenger, Leah Maddox. Below them, the Sierra Nevada spread open like a wound, carved deep with ravines, switchbacks, and canyons concealing centuries of silence. They followed the line of the Rattlespine Trail first, then veered down toward the river bend where Aaron's tent still stood, sealed and strangely quiet. They hovered over the western edge of Raven Notch, then traced the jagged rim above Basin Run, scanning for anything out of place. Nothing moved, no heat signatures, no signs of life. On the ground, K9 units were already descending. The dogs moved in quick burst-snouts twitching, ears alert then froze. Again and again, no scent, no trail. No indication that Aaron had passed that way. By noon, over 100 square miles had been visually searched, then 200, They scanned scrubland cliff faces, dry creek beds choked with willow and mesquite. Expert volunteers combed the side gulches. Rock climbers threaded ropes through tight granite crevices, radios clipped to their vests. Everyone kept their eyes open for a footprint, a torn sleeve, a glint of metal, anything. But they found nothing. No boot prints beyond the tent site, no wrappers, no camera, no SD card. Just Aaron's absence. A stillness too complete to ignore. Around day 2, a volunteer named Carl Jenkins stood at the edge of a sandstone outcrop and whispered, "It's like she melted into the rocks." The phrase stuck. By day 4, it was printed on coffee mugs back at base camp. One ranger cautiously brought up the possibility of foul play. But there was no evidence, no tire marks, no third-party footprints, and no other hikers in that remote quadrant during the time frame Aaron disappeared. The trail logs confirmed it. She'd been alone. The official search was called off after 9 days. Unofficially, it never ended. Leah Maddox stayed another week, retracing her sister's route alone. At night, she slept in Aaron's tent, curled into the same corner her sister once marked as east-facing. She sat by the unused fire ring in silence, staring into the dark, listening, waiting, hoping. But the mountain didn't answer. It never does. The story began quietly, just a local headline. Solo photographer missing in Sierra Wilderness. A few hundred shares on Facebook. A clip on a Sacramento morning news show. But by the weekend, Aaron Maddox's face was everywhere. CNN, Dateline, Reddit, hiking blogs. Her story exploded. She became the woman who vanished without a trace. And everyone had a theory. The final photo from the ranger cam went viral. That soft, mid-morning smile. The half-turn of her shoulder. Her hand adjusting her backpack. It became an icon open-ended and haunting. Some said it looked like a farewell. Others insisted she was about to laugh. One podcaster called it the most chilling still ever captured on public land. Theories poured in. Some were simple. A misstep near a cliff edge. Loose shale. A fall no one heard or saw. The Sierra can bury 1,000 tragedies without a sound. Others speculated on wildlife mountain lions. Maybe a bear. But rangers found no signs of a struggle. No blood, no disturbed gear. And Aaron wasn't reckless. She knew how to store food, how to blend into the landscape. Then came the darker ones. Voluntary disappearance. She planned it, they said. Faked her own death. Left the SD card behind intentionally. Why else were there no tracks? No signs of distress? Maybe she wanted to vanish. But those who truly knew her called it absurd. Aaron was building something, a career, a name. She had 3 gallery exhibits booked for the fall. She was compiling a series called Light is a Survivor. She'd been excited full of notes, ideas, lists. She wasn't the kind to ghost people. Especially not Leah. Online forums dug deeper. Someone posted a blurry figure circled in one of her final Instagram posts hidden in shadow between canyon walls. It was nonsense, but it fed the fire. Soon the story wasn't about Aaron Maddox anymore. It became about what she represented, the risk of solitude, the fragility of even the most prepared in wild places, the razor-thin boundary between control and chaos. She was painted as fearless, careless, brave, naive, whatever suited the clique. But none of them knew her. None of them stood in her boots. None of them read the last map she drew, or felt the silence settle over her abandoned tent after nightfall. Only one person carried her story forward. And she made a promise. Leah didn't cry at the press conference. She stood behind the microphone, Aaron's green notebook clutched to her chest, and read from a page that trembled only once. "If she's out there," Leah said, "I'll find her. If she's not, I'll still try, because that's what she would have done for me." The media swarmed. Cameras flashed. Headlines followed. But Leah didn't linger. She had a trail to follow. She quit her job 2 weeks later, sold her apartment, gave away most of her belongings, and bought a beat-up Toyota 4Runner. She filled it with gear. Maps, books, trail permits, solar chargers, photographs. Every year since 2014, on the anniversary of Erin's disappearance, Leah returns to the Sierra, sometimes alone, sometimes with friends or volunteers, always with purpose. She walks the trail, measures light angles, cross-references Erin's notes with current topography. She speaks with rangers, learns how to read thermal satellite data, memorizes contour lines. She answers every message, every hiker rumor, every whisper. Most are hoaxes. A few are honest mistakes. She follows them all anyway. Over time, Leah mapped out an unofficial tributary branching off Raven Notch, a dry, unmarked side canyon not listed on public maps. She dubbed it Maddox Hollow, marked it with canary yellow tape and hand-carved trail signs just like Erin used to do when they were kids. She wasn't searching for closure. She didn't believe in that word anymore. She was searching for evidence, for clarity, for truth, even if it cut. People called her obsessed. Some told her to move on, to seek therapy, but Leah didn't hear them. She only heard her sister's voice, somewhere, just past the bend. Laughter echoed faintly down the dry granite walls. Leah could almost hear Erin's voice in the stillness. There's always something just out of view. You have to keep looking until the light hits it. So she kept looking. By year 3, Leah found a boot print, partial, weathered, but distinct. It sat just beneath a narrow overhang, tucked beside a sloped ridge no one had thought to check. In year 5, she uncovered a single carabiner buried in wind-blown sediment, same brand Erin used, same model she once clipped to her pack like a keychain. Year 7 brought her to a Navajo tracker who directed her toward a split in the ridge locals called the Breatha Crevice, so narrow it whistled when wind passed through it, a place even seasoned hikers avoided. Leah went anyway, because in her heart the mountain hadn't taken Erin. Not entirely, it just hadn't shown its cards yet. 6 months after Erin Maddox vanished, the emails stopped. No new leads, no confirmed sightings, no fresh evidence. The missing persons file drifted from the ranger station's bulletin board to a drawer in the back office. Flyers curled at the edges. The media moved on. Even the online forums went quiet, drowned out by newer cases and louder grief. Technically, the case remained open, unresolved, but in every practical sense it was dead. In December 2014, an official report labeled her case status as passive, which meant no allocated resources unless new evidence surfaced, which meant nothing. Budget cuts had gutted the park's operations. Ranger numbers were down, helicopter hours slashed, K-9 units reassigned to active cases. And with no press conferences, no family on national television, there was no external pressure. Erin Maddox became another name in a growing list of disappearances. The mountain remembered, but institutions forget. Leah didn't. She filed paperwork, attended public meetings, left voicemails. Most went unanswered. One ranger off the record told her, "We average 5 disappearances every high season. You want the truth? The system's full." So the burden, as it often does, shifted from the agencies built to help to the ones left behind. Leah took over what was left of the search. She maintained the Google Drive folder, updated GPS coordinates, reprinted flyers, filed FOIA requests. She learned how to read satellite topography, learned how to analyze soil runoff and thermal maps. She sent newsletters to backcountry guides, offering a $1,000 reward for any credible lead. None came. The mountain held its silence. For years, the trailhead where Erin was last seen became just another launch point for tourists. Her Subaru was long gone impounded, auctioned to someone who never knew the story. But every now and then a new ranger scrolling old logs would pause at her name, Maddox E., and feel the chill. Perfect weather, tidy camp, missing SD card. It never added up. And just when the story felt settled, dissolved into legend, the mountain breathed again. 3 years later, a hiker surfaced with a photo and a question no one could answer. It was the summer of 2017 when the first report came in. A couple from Nevada, both experienced hikers, were descending into the inner basin near Marrow Ridge when they spotted a woman standing alone on a ledge beyond the tree line. She wore an old green pack, canvas straps fraying, a sun-bleached, wide-brimmed hat. Her head tilted slightly, as if listening. She didn't speak, didn't wave. She simply turned behind a rock outcrop and vanished. The couple thought it strange but not alarming until they rounded the bend and realized the ledge ended abruptly. No path continued, no slope, no safe descent, just open space. They told a ranger that night. He chalked it up to heat exhaustion, distance misjudgment. Shadows on the trail. It happened. But the story lingered. 2 weeks later, a solo hiker reported a similar sighting. Same ledge, same posture, same vanishing. Over the next year, 6 more accounts trickled in. Always near Merrill Ridge, always alone. Always the same figure. Some said she looked confused, others said she was humming. By the time Leah caught wind of the rumors, online hikers had already named the figure, the Hollow Woman. Most dismissed it as myth. Campfire ghost stories meant to unsettle new backpackers. But Leah didn't laugh. She mapped the sightings. They cluster at Devery, one of them within a specific radius, a narrow slice of terrain that, curiously, had never been part of the original search zone. She reached out to one of the Hikersa teacher from Albuquerque, who had taken a blurry photo with his zoom lens. The image was grainy, distant, unclear. But when Leah zoomed in, her breath stopped. The woman's pack was nearly identical to Aaron's same olive-green tone. Same crescent moon patch stitched just above the outer pocket. Aaron had sewn it by hand when they were 12. There was no face, no confirming detail. It could have been anyone, but it wasn't. Leah printed the image and taped it inside Aaron's field journal. Underneath it she wrote one word: close. Because if Aaron had stepped off the trail, if she'd found something, maybe she was still trying to find her way back. The rains came late that year. A rare summer storm swept through the Sierra in early August. Flash floods surged down old washouts. Side canyons carved deeper into rock. The weather unearthed what time had buried. That's how it was found. 2 geology students from UC Davis, mapping erosion patterns near Slate Gorge, spotted something lodged in a rock fissure. At first, they thought it was trash, a torn field guide, an old trail journal warped by water. But when they pulled it free, the binding cracked like dry bark, and a single page fell loose. The name written inside the front cover made them stop cold Aaron Maddox. The notebook was water-damaged, warped at the corners, its pages stuck together in clumps, but large portions remained legible. Her handwriting was unmistakable, angular, confident, written in black ink that had barely faded. Most of the entries tracked her trip: temperatures, sunrise angles, river levels. Just as Leah remembered, Aaron recorded each day with the meticulousness of someone mapping more than just terrain. She wrote about the way light curved across canyon walls, about a raven that trailed her for nearly 3 miles, about sleeping beneath a moon so bright it washed the stars from the sky. But somewhere near the end, the tone shifted. The entries became shorter, choppier, nervous. Saw someone above ridge, thought it was a mirage. Heard something, not animal, not wind. Quote, and then, the final line, written across the bottom of a torn page, smeared with something that looked like dried duster blood. It's watching me. No signature. No date. Just that. The journal was rushed to park authorities. It was authenticated within days, confirmed as Aaron's handwriting, matched against her previous notebooks. There were smudges of skin oil, microscopic fibers consistent with her old jacket. It was hers. Leah flew out within 24 hours. When she held the journal, she didn't speak. She simply ran her fingertips over the page like tracing a pulsation still faint, still beating. The location where it had been found was steep, remote, nearly inaccessible. It suggested only one thing. Aaron had climbed. She'd gone off trail, deeper than anyone had imagined, perhaps chasing a shadow or running from one. And if that journal was truly hers, it meant she'd survived longer than anyone thought. Long enough to be afraid. Long enough to write it down. After the journal surfaced, the atmosphere inside the Sierra Backcountry office changed. Her file wasn't cold anymore. It was warm, breathing. And Aaron wasn't alone. Ranger Mark Delaney, a seasoned SAR veteran, reopened archived reports late one night just looking for parallels. By morning, he had found three women, all solo hikers, all missing. The first was in 2009. Elena Voss, 26, a botanist researching lichen formations along the Glenford corridor, vanished on her third field day. Her tent was found untouched, journal open, no sign of distress. The second, in 2012. Stephanie Reed, 31, an amateur photographer planning to hike the Hemlock Basin Loop, last seen buying trail mix in Bishop. Her boots were later found near a dry creek bed. Nothing else. The third, Aaron Maddox. Each case had been treated separately. Different years, different zones, different circumstances. But Delaney noticed something else. All three trails intersected at a single place. A narrow, unmarked drainage corridor in the southeast face of Slate Gorge. Locals called it Widow's Hollow. Steep, crumbling, not listed on public maps. A place easy to enter and nearly impossible to leave. He kept digging. Each case left behind something strange. Elena had drawn symbols in her notes geometric sketches she'd never used before. Stephanie left a 6-second voice memo on her phone. Wind noise, then faint tapping. And Aaron's journal, of course, ended with the words, "It's watching me." 3 disappearances. 3 fragments. Each one less like an accident and more like a warning. The theory started quietly. Not in press briefings or ranger memos, just whispered over walkie-talkies, shared during coffee breaks. Something or someone was out there. A pattern, a presence. The mountain had always been dangerous. People slipped, got lost, pushed too far. But this wasn't that. These weren't stumbles. These were erasures. Delaney submitted a request for deeper investigation. It was denied. No budget, no hard evidence. Just stories. But some stories don't fade. They echo through rock, through silence, through time, until someone listens, or someone vanishes trying. By 2024, most people had forgotten the name Aaron Maddox. Her disappearance had become a footnote in Sierra mythos. A cautionary tale. A paragraph on the back of a podcast intro. But not everyone moved on. Eli Romero hadn't. At 32, Eli was a survivalist with a modest YouTube following and a reputation for chasing edges. Former Army, part-time filmmaker, full-time wanderer. His channel, Bone Dust, featured long-form documentaries about vanished trails, forgotten mining towns, and places where beauty whispered secrets. He didn't chase ghosts. He followed patterns. And Aaron Maddox was a pattern he couldn't shake. He first heard her story during a solo trek in Utah. Another hiker, swapping gear tips around a fire, mentioned the Hollow Woman. Said the sightings lined up with an old case. Some photographer chick. Vanished. No trace. Weird, right? That night, Eli went down the rabbit hole flipping through archived forums and ranger logs by firelight. By the next week, he'd filed permits for the Rattlespine Trail. His goal was simple. Retrace Aaron's steps. Exactly. Same gear weight. Same route. Same dates. Not to find her, at least. Not directly, but to feel what she might have felt. To move through the silence she once did. He started in late May. He wore a body cam, packed drone gear, arranged check-ins with a friend back home. As he descended into the backcountry, he filmed daily footage planned to narrate it later. He recorded the way the wind shrieked through switchbacks, the oven-like heat radiating off the granite. The silence at night, thick and breathless. But something else followed, too. Small things. At first, a rattlesnake coiled by his footend never struck. A crow perched beside his tent, unmoving, watching until dusk. His gear carefully arranged before bed shuffled slightly by morning. Not stolen. Just shifted. Then one night his camera picked up static. A brief glitch. Just white snow. 10 seconds. Gone. Another night he heard footsteps. Soft. Measured. But when he unzipped the tent, there was nothing. No tracks. Just wind curling across dry dust. By day 4 he reached Slate Gorge. By day 5 he went off-route into Widow's Hollow. He didn't tell his contact. Didn't check in. Didn't upload. And then, nothing. Then, on day 3, deep past Aaron's last recorded coordinates, Eli found something. It wasn't hers, but it shouldn't have been there at all. It started with stones. Not unusual in a canyon made entirely of them, but these weren't scattered or shaped by runoff. They were arranged. Eli noticed the first formation just past mile, marker 12.5, a vertical stack of 6 smooth rocks, perfectly balanced on a ledge of sun-bleached granite. Too symmetrical, too deliberate. No wind or wildlife could have placed them like that. He stopped, filmed it, marked the GPS. Probably a hiker's cairn, he thought. A trail marker. Common practice in remote backcountry. But then he saw another. And another. They weren't just stacks. They were symbols. A spiral. A triangle within a circle. One was shaped like an arrow, but it pointed up the cliff wall, not down the trail. Eli followed them, veering slightly off route. The canyon narrowed. Light filtered through in dull patches. Shadows stretched long, and that's where he found the most disturbing one yet. A ring of stones, waist high, perfectly symmetrical. At its center sat a single pine cone, green and pristine despite the fact that no pine trees grew for miles in any direction. On the rim of the stone ring, a flat rock bore a carved figurehead bowed, arms at its sides, no face. Just a smooth indentation where the eyes should have been. Eli crouched, scanned the area. No trash, no footprints, no gear, no sign of recent human activity. And yet the pine cone had fallen recently. It was still soft, still alive. That night he camped nearby, kept his fire low, reviewed footage by lantern light. In one drone clip, he panned past the second formation. Something flickered in the corner of the frame brief, fast, gone before he could pause it. He rewound, played it again. Nothing, just the drone's quiet hum over stone. Shadows that shifted without source. Eli wasn't scared. Not exactly. What he felt was sharper calculation. These weren't mistakes. Someone or something had created these patterns, recently, with purpose. He tagged the locations on his GPS. Unknown markings. Didn't say it aloud, but it pressed against the back of his thoughts like a breath behind his ear. This was where she went off trail. This was where Aaron's map ended and whatever had watched her might still be watching. On the 4th night, Eli made camp near the river. The wind picked up around dusk, gusting low and steady, strong enough to rattle his tent with each breath. He pitched beside a rock outcrop flat for shelter, close enough to filter water, far enough to feel completely alone. His drone had glitched earlier that day. Lost signal. When it came back, it spun erratically for 5 full seconds. Eli blamed interference. Canyon weather was unpredictable. That night, something felt wrong. He cooked silently. No fire, just a portable stove and a small boil of rice. His GoPro was mounted to a boulder, capturing a time-lapse of the stars. Above him, the Milky Way split the sky clean down the middle. Brilliant. Still. But Eli kept glancing toward the trees that lined the river's bend. The wind blew. The leaves didn't move. At 3:17 a.m. he woke up. No sound. No light. Just pressure. Like he was being watched. He lay still. Listened. Then he heard it. Faint. Not words. Not wind. Rhythm. Soft and repetitive. Like someone murmuring in sleep, a whisper not meant to be heard. He grabbed his camera, panned toward the riverbank. Nothing. Stillness. But the whisper kept threading through the night, always just outside the range of hearing. He whispered back, "Hello?" No reply. In the morning, he played the audio back. At exactly 3 hours, 18 minutes, and 22 seconds, the waveform spiked, just once. Not static. Not wind, a sharp intake of breath. And behind it, faint, layered, 2 voices. One sharp, one wet. Then silence. He didn't remember hearing both. He saved the clip, backed it up, uploaded it to his SatLink. He scanned his camp. No tracks. No disturbed earth. But the rock he'd slept beside bore a faint marking he hadn't noticed before. Not visible from camp, only clear from the ridge above. Just beneath the curvy a handprint, pressed into stone. Small, like a woman's, and beside it, etched in familiar handwriting. Don't sleep near the water. It was Aaron's. Leah had shown him her field notes. The loops and angles matched. He found it the next morning, not on any trail, not even a game path. He'd wandered east, hoping to catch a signal from a ridge above. That's when he saw it, a flash of faded blue beneath a dry thicket of manzanita. He almost missed it. The sun had just caught a strip of nylon, something too regular, too artificial. Eli dropped his pack, moved in. The brush had wrapped around it. Branches twisted through the straps like roots, gripping something they didn't want to let go. It took 20 minutes to dig it free. A backpack, old, torn, weather-burned. The top flap melted from years of sun. Sand worked into every seam. He turned it over. A name stitched inside the inner tag froze him. E. Maddox. He didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, slowly, he opened it. Most of the contents had rotted. Fabric, a cracked flashlight, a rusted multi-tool. But inside, sealed in a waterproof pouch, still zipped, a New Mexico driver's license. Photo faded. Erin Maddox. No mistake. Beside it, a black film canister, unlabeled. A small leather notebook, blank. First page torn out. No food, no journal, no camera. But that ID, that film, that name. Eli didn't speak, didn't celebrate. It didn't feel like a discovery. It felt like a trespass, like stepping into a grave. He wrapped the contents with care, slid them into his own pack, marked the location twice on GPS, then covered the bag with a tarp of dry leaves. He rebuilt the marker out of respecter, maybe instinct. The air around him had gone too quiet. The trees didn't move. No insects. No breeze. Then, behind him, something shifted. A soft thump, like a footfall in sand. He spun around. Nothing. But just past the scrubland, balanced on a flat rock that hadn't been there yesterday, stood a new cairn. Fresh. Clean. The same formation, but closer. And this one wasn't built from 5 stones. It was 6. Back in Sierra Vale, Eli checked into a cheap roadside motel off Highway 168. He hadn't slept in 2 days. His fingers still smelled like stone dust. He didn't even unpack, just dropped his gear on the carpet and unwrapped the roll of film, still folded inside a bandana like something sacred. He wasn't about to mail it off. He found a photo lab in Bishop. Old school. Still used chemical baths and red lights. He paid extra to be present during development. Never let the film out of his sight. The technician didn't ask questions, just nodded and began the process. The first images came slowly. They were what he expected. Wide shots. Canyon walls. Clean lines. Sunday flaring over ridges. Shadows like sculpture. A boot near a ledge. A raven mid-flight. A blurry selfie smiling toward the sun. Then the tone changed. The next frame was darker. Grainy. Shot in deep shadow or just before dusk. A slope of trees juniper maybe bent at unnatural angles. The next was the same composition, but now, in the corner, a figure. Barely visible. Blurred by motion. Tall. Thin. No face. No real shape. But undeniably there. Another shot. Closer. Trees closing in. The image distorted like the camera had been jolted or dropped. Aaron never took pictures like that. The final photo wasn't a landscape. It was a hand reaching toward the lens, not posed, not still, caught mid-motion, trying to block the frame. The fingers were long. Wrong, the technician said, pulling back from the scanner. You sure this isn't staged? He asked, half joking. Eli didn't respond. He just gathered the prints, paid in cash, and left without a word. Back at the motel, he spread the photos across the bedspread, lined them up, noted sequence, studied exposure levels, tried to reconstruct what she saw while she kept shooting. And the question he couldn't answer, if Aaron dropped the camera. Who took the last photo? At 3:07 a.m., he posted one frame online. The 5th shot. The figure in the trees, brightness lowered. Contrast balanced, just clear enough to tell it wasn't a shadow. His caption read, recovered from Aaron Maddox's undeveloped film. Shot dated May 24, 2014. Near Slate Gorge. Zoom in, tell me what you see. By sunrise, it had 80 views. By noon, it had 1 million. Eli never anticipated what came next. Some called it groundbreaking. Others screamed hoax. Amateur analysts dissected every pixel, measured tree heights, calculated lighting angles. Subreddits exploded. Podcasts speculated. YouTube thumbnails with red circles and capital letters flooded in. Headlines followed. Missing hiker's camera holds chilling secret. Ghost in the gorge? Filmmaker uncovers forgotten terror. Praise came fast. So did the backlash. Accusations poured in. Exploiting a tragedy. Faking evidence. Planting the backpack. One email read, "You should rot for what you've done to her memory." Another claimed the figure matched a being from Hopi legend. Another swore it was a government agent in active camouflage. Others said it was just pareidolia. It's a branch, man. Calm down. But the ones that stayed with Eli came from strangers who said they'd seen it too. I hiked Slate Gorge in 2016. Thought I saw someone standing still. Same spot. My dad vanished near Hemlock Ridge in '09. That figure, it's familiar. I heard the whispering too. Eli archived every message. Then he packed. No interviews, no monetization, no sponsors. He deleted the post. Wiped the footage, took screenshots of the comments, printed the last photo, folded it twice, and slipped it into his chest pocket. He wasn't going back for fame. He was going back because the last image hadn't been taken by Aaron, and he needed to know where Wade had. Eli left before sunrise. No crew, no drones, no content plan, just a pack, 2 canteens, a headlamp, and the photo tucked against his ribs. He told no one, not even his safety contact back in Bishop. This wasn't for followers. This was for silence. This was for truth. He retraced Aaron's route exact landmark by landmark. He moved faster, lighter. His body remembered. So did something else. By the third night he was deeper than before. The cairns were still there. But now they were newer, cleaner, topped with stones that hadn't weathered. He passed one with a fresh handprint smeared in dust, smaller than his. Human. Maybe. Maybe not. He reached the same ridge where he'd found Aaron's pack. The thicket had thickened. The manzanita twisted tighter, like the canyon had grown defensive, trying to reclaim the scar he'd left. He didn't pause it. He moved toward the one thing that had haunted him for weeks, the final frame of drone footage from his previous trip. The signal had glitched at the very end. In the last 4 seconds there was a shadow, a hollow carved into the wall of the ridge, curved inward like a throat. It didn't appear on any topo map. No satellite pass had shown it. But Eli had memorized every pixel. That's where he was going. Eli didn't eat much, didn't sleep much. He moved like someone in a trance, chasing an echo. A part of him already knew he wasn't coming back, and by the 5th night the trail ran out. But the canyon didn't. It opened not in space, but in feeling. The air thickened, the silence turned viscous, and up ahead, past a tumble of boulders split by old erosion, he saw it. A gap, low, jagged, half-hidden beneath thorn brush and slumped earth. The entrance to something deeper than any trail map had ever shown, a place meant to be missed, but not by him. It wasn't a cave in the classic sense. It didn't yawn open with grandeur or hum with the sacred. It crouched low and narrow like a wound in the canyon wall. Almost ashamed, almost forgotten. Eli dropped to his stomach and pushed through the brush, dragging his pack behind. The temperature dropped fast, nearly 20 degrees colder inside. It smelled like wet stone, stale dirt and something else, something like rust. His headlamp flickered once, then held. The walls were tight. Dust clung to everything in a colorless film. He could barely stand, barely breathe. But 10 feet in, the passage widened into a pocket chamber. Gear lay scattered on the ground, old, broken. A rusted buckle, canvas shreds. A snapped tent pole. Some of it looked military grade. Some didn't. He spotted a glove child, sized, covered in moss. Then, on the back wall, he saw them. Symbols. Not words. Not anything you'd write in a journal. Circles, arrows, repeated hash marks, etchings of someone trying to remember, or warn. One symbol repeated over and over, a spiral with a single bar through the center. Eli knelt and traced it with his fingers. Then he saw it. Tucked in the far corner of the chamber beneath a pile of loose shale was a box. Metal. Dented. Locked with a clasp so corroded it had fused shut from time and pressure. He cleared the rocks around it slowly, carefully, heart thudding in his throat. The lid was scratched. Not gouged, but carved. Deliberate marks. E.M. And beneath that, one word. Keep. Eli didn't open it. Not yet. He sat beside it in the cold and listened. The air didn't move. There was no wind, no sound. But something was there. Not alive. Not dead. Just waiting. He reached for his multi-tool, hands shaking. Whatever was inside that box, Aaron had wanted it hidden, or protected. Maybe both. But he didn't open it in the canyon. Something about that chamber, the silence, the symbolset told him not to. It felt wrong, like the air itself was holding its breath. So he sealed the lid with duct tape, packed it carefully, and left without sleeping. 42 miles in 3 days. When he reached the rim, he didn't stop walking until he reached his Jeep. He didn't speak to anyone. Didn't check his phone. He drove straight back to Bishop and checked into the same Motel Room 14, the same bed where he'd laid out Aaron's photographs. Then, finally, he opened the box. The lock didn't take long. Just rust and resistance. A quick flick of the blade, and the lid creaked open. Inside, wrapped in waxed cloth, were 3 objects. First, a bundle of photographs. Most were creased, water-stained. Some clearly Aaron's Sangular shots. Deep contrast, trees halved by light, but others weren't, different style. Sloppy framing, close-ups of soil, bark, a partial boot print filled with sand. One photo was torn straight down the middle. It showed a persona on the edge of a ridge walking away. The tear split them in half. Second, a compass. Broken. The needle spun lazily, unaffected by orientation. But carved into the rim, in scratchy handwriting, were 4 words. Don't follow the red. And last, a voice recorder. Small. Outdated. Cracked in one corner. The rubber grip had peeled. Dust clogged the grooves. But the battery port was clean. Still intact. Eli inserted new batteries. The green light blinked. One file. Timestamp. May 24, 2014. 2:03 RM. He sat on the floor. Pressed play. For several seconds static. Then her voice. Aaron. Hoarse. Unsteady. A whisper, trying not to be heard. And what she said wasn't a goodbye. It was a warning. Okay, she said, breathing hard. It's Saturday, I think. Still near the bend. I moved camp uphill. The river was too loud. I couldn't hear. She paused. A long one. Then a faint crack, like shifting rock, or something stepping just outside the light. I thought I saw someone, she whispered, but no one should be down here. No one. Silence again. Then her breath sharpened, like she was crouched, holding still. Dry leaves, brushed nylon. It's not a hiker, she whispered. I thought it was. At first, the pack looked right, but it moved wrong. Like it didn't know how to wear it. A low scraping, fingernails on stone. I tried to call out. I said, "Hello." It didn't stop. It didn't answer. Then, the whisper, so soft it nearly vanished under static. It keeps circling back. The mic picked up a shuffle, a zipper, a match, the flare of a flame. Too loud. Aaron inhaled sharply. I didn't think this place was haunted, she said. I didn't think things like this were real. Thin a noise. Not hers. A thud. A dragging sound. I'm going to the high ridge in the morning. If I don't make it." The tape stopped. No scream. No crash. Just that half sentence, hanging in the static like smoke from a dying fire. Eli sat frozen. Then played it again. And again. Each time it hit harder. The way her voice tried to stay steady, the logic she clung to, the fear she didn't want to name. What lingered most wasn't her fear. It was the word. It. Aaron never said who had followed Heronley what, and whatever it was, she hadn't just seen it, she'd heard it breathing. 3 days after Eli posted about the recovered voice recorder, then deleted the post, I received a message. No subject line, no name, just a phone number and a single sentence. I was there when they sealed it. You're not crazy. Call me. He waited a day before dialing. Burner phone. No trace. The voice that answered was old and raspy, carved from cigarettes and silence. "You Eli?" the man asked. "Yes." A pause. "I don't have long. I just want you to know you're not the first to find that cave." The man never gave a last name, just Mike. Said he'd worked as a backcountry ranger in the Sierra National Forest from 1989 to 2007. Retired early, moved off-grid. He'd heard Eli's story through someone still working the back trails. One of those whispered hallway conversations, the kind that could cost someone their job. "I found that same cave in '94, Mike said. "When I reported it, they shut me down, said it wasn't on public maps for a reason." He claimed that section of the canyon near Slate Gorge where Aaron disappeared had been internally red-flagged for decades. Not publicly, not officially, but every ranger knew. Don't go past the third bend alone. Don't camp near the hollow. Some called it superstition. Others protocol. "People get nervous when you say cursed," he added, so command just called it erosion. Fire risk, unstable ground, whatever sounded right. Mike told Eli he'd seen the spiral symbol be forged into stone, scratched into old trees, near campsites that were later found abandoned. Sometimes no one was reported missing. Sometimes people simply weren't counted. "They don't put everything in the reports," he said. When Eli asked why, Mike hesitated. "Because once you write it down, it becomes real." Before hanging up, Mike gave one final warning. "If you go back, don't bring a flashlight. It finds you easier in the light." Then the line went dead. Eli sat in silencinode because he was scared. But because everything Aaron had whispered every symbol, every shadow was starting to make sense. And someone had known all along. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he reached out to Mara Singhan, investigative journalist who once covered missing persons in national parks. Sharp, relentless, not easily intimidated. He forwarded everything: the box, the film, the voice recording, the call transcript. She replied with one word: meet. They rented a cabin near the South Rim, remote enough to avoid notice, close enough to dig. For a week, they tore into the archives. At first it wasn't dramatic, just anomalies, memos with redactions, unfiled incident slips, inventory tags from SAR missions that were never publicly logged. Then Mara found something deeper. An internal dispatch log from 2002. 3 hikers saw women vanished along routes that converged near Widow's Hollow. None of them had been grouped together in official databases, filed under different counties, different years. But the coordinates didn't lie. Then came a 1,991 memo, buried in a stack of maintenance logs. It referenced a zone exclusion request for a drainage corridor near Slate Gorge. Reason listed: environmental anomalies, prior distress reports. Another entry mentioned a Ranger M. Trevor's filing for psychological leave after a solo patrol through the same area. Notes mentioned auditory hallucinations, the feeling of being watched for days. No follow-up, no investigation. Each file had been labeled natural causes, misadventure, hiker error, but none of it sat right. Mara found 2 maps owned public, 1 internal. The difference was subtle, but there it was, a gap, less than a square mile, right where Eli had found the cave. They kept digging. cross-referencing missing person cases with internal SAR logs. Names repeated. So did the spiral. Each time, one phrase appeared in margins. Sierra Watch Zone. No public definition, no code in any formal record, but by then they didn't need confirmation. Erin hadn't been an outlier. She was one of many. And every time someone vanished, the canyon only got quieter. Mara looked up from her notes. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were sharp. They've known for years. Eli nodded. And they buried it. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was preparing, because there were too many names. Too many ghosts. And still not enough answers. But Rachel had changed. 10 years since her sister disappeared. 10 years of searching, hoping, rebuilding, breaking again. She'd returned to the rim, every year left flowers, whispered Erin's name into the stone stillness. But she hadn't gone back into the canyon. Not until now. Eli asked gently. No pressure. No promises. Just truth. I found where she was. Rachel didn't answer right away. A week later, she showed up at his door. Boots on, photo in hand. It was Erin's favorite. A black and white she'd taken in Zion before Sierra. A shaft of light, piercing red stone. Dust swirling inside the beam like breath. She'd titled it Stillness. Rachel had sealed it in plastic. She planned to leave it where her sister's trail had ended. The hike was silent. Eli led. Rachel followed. She didn't need to speak. The canyon said enough. Its walls loomed high, unchanged, but the air held weight memory pressed into every stone. At the river crossing, Rachel paused. She knelt, placed her hand into the current, then wiped it across her jeans, as if claiming the place, the way Erin might have done. When they reached the ridge above the cave, the sun had begun to fall. Amber light spilled across the valley floor. Rachel stood at the edge. The wind lifted her hair. She reached into her bag, pulled out the photo, and whispered her sister's name into the canyon below. Erin. The wind had dropped. The air cooled. Neither Eli nor Leah spoke it aloud, but they both knew something watched from here. They ducked low, hands brushing against the jagged stone as they entered the narrow cavity in the cliff face. Leah clutched the rolled photograph like it was pulsing in her hands, a heartbeat that didn't belong to her. Inside, the silence closed and fast, thick as water. The chamber hadn't changed. It still held the weight of Erin Maddox, the dust, the presence, and something else that had waited far too long to be seen. Leah walked slowly, every movement deliberate. Her eyes searched the walls, the floor, the broken gear left behind by hikers who never made it back. She reached the back of the chamber and knelt, whispering softly, "I brought you something." Eli turned his gaze away, giving her the privacy she needed. Leah placed the photo gently into a dry crevice just above the dented metal box. She didn't bury it. She didn't hide it. She simply left it like a tribute, a placeholder, a promise fulfilled. But just as her fingers brushed the stone one last time, she froze. There, along the far wall, where light barely reached, carvings stretched from floor to ceiling. Hundreds of them, some shallow, others so deep they split the rock. Dates, initials, crude shapes, symbols, etched layer over layer, time forgotten, generations maybe. "These are names," Leah said softly. Her eyes traced the oldest lines, following the scratches worn thin by decades of silence. Some were familiar, spirals like the ones Eli had seen near the drainage basin. Others were indecipherable, but one carving stood out. Near the floor, low and precise, freshly etched with none of the age-softened wear of the others, EM 10.14.14. Erin Maddox. The day she vanished, Leah's knees hit the stone. She stared at the carving, unable to touch it. Around it, the wall was cleaner than the wrist untouched by dirt or weather, like the cave had protected this single name. "She was here," Leah whispered. "She made it this far." Eli joined her, kneeling beside the mark. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Next to Erin's initials were others. 4 more sets, aligned in a vertical row. Same date, different names. None of them had ever made the news. LS, BDCRJE. 5 people. Same day. Same disappearance. She wasn't alone, Leah said. Her voice shook, but not from fear, from clarity. Eli scanned the wall again, this time with purpose. These weren't just graffiti from hikers. They were records. Some dated back long before the area had ever been mapped. Some names repeated. Others stopped abruptly. But Aaron's stood alone, central, precise, untouched. Leah reached into her backpack, pulled out a piece of chalk, and beneath Aaron's initials, she marked her own, LM 6.1 2.24. A tribute. A record. Maybe even a warning. They remained in the cave only a few minutes more. Long enough to leave the photo. Long enough to say goodbye. As they turned to leave, Leah took one last look at the wall. In the lowest corner, freshly scratched and still damp with moisture, a new line had been carved into the rock. 3 letters. ER. Eli hadn't carved it, but it was his. Later, back at the cabin, Eli played Aaron's final voice recording once more. He'd listened to it dozens of times, memorized every pause, every breath. But now, with Leah seated beside him and the initials still etched in their minds, he heard something new. Aaron's voice cracked through the speaker, tired but steady. I'm going to the high ridge in the morning. If I don't make it... The recording clicked off. That's where it always ended. But Leah leaned closer. Play that again, she said. Right before it cuts. Eli rewound the file, playing the final 10 seconds. Same rhythm, same sentence. But this time, just before the cutoff beneath the static was another voice. Male. Soft, not desperate, calm, intentional. One word. Stay. Elf. Eli froze. Did you hear that? Leah nodded, slowly. That wasn't her. He ran the clip through audio software, isolating the frequency, boosting the layers. The voice was there, unmistakable. Half a breath before the end. Spoken close to the mic, not by accident. If Aaron was alone when she made that recording, then she wasn't alone for long. Leah didn't speak. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. Because both of them now understood something neither had wanted to face. Aaron didn't disappear. She was taken. And the canyonette had a voice of its own. The hike-out was silent. Leah walked ahead now, her posture straight, her boots steady. She didn't look at the trail. She didn't need to. It knew her now. And she knew it. The canyon had claimed her sister. But Leah had left something behind, too. Aaron's photo still rested in the cave, above the locked box. The initials in the stone were still fresh, and so was the feeling and absence that watched. Eli followed a few paces behind, glancing over his shoulder more often now. Not out of habit, out of awareness. Something had walked with him since the cave. Something not unkind, but patient. At the final switchback near the rim, Leah paused. She turned back one last time and stared out over the endless red valley. The light was falling. The wind hadn't returned. Then she whispered her sister's name, and she wept. Not loud, not broken, just honest. When she finally turned away and continued down the path, her steps were sure. Eli Lingel. His camera was still slung around his neck. He hadn't filmed much since they found the cave, but now with the sun sinking behind the jagged skyline, he turned and raised the viewfinder. He aimed it toward the ridge, toward the gap in the stone, and for just a moment, barely perceptible, something moved. A flicker, a figure, right at the edge of the shadows. He didn't press record. He just watched. Was it closure? Or was it the beginning of something else? The final frame holds. Eli Romero, standing still, facing the canyon, alone, but not lost. Eli's final update came quietly. No dramatic teaser, no viral buildup. Just a simple notification at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. A 14-minute video. The title read, What I Found in the Sierra Nevada. No music, no intro. Just Eli sitting in the same motel room as before. The blinds were drawn. The walls were bare. His face looked thinner, his eyes darker, his voice steady but not calm. There was something under the surface, A weight. "I wasn't going to post this," he said, "but people deserve to know." He recapped everything: Aaron's hike, the empty tent, the journal, the whispering, the cave, the carvings, the voice on the recorder. But he didn't dramatize it. He didn't speculate. He simply laid it all out, image by image, timestamp by timestamp. Then came the last 2 minutes. "I don't think this is about one person," he said. "I think it's a pattern, something we were never supposed to see." He paused, staring into the lens like he could see through it. "I'm going back. One more time. But I'm not bringing a camera. No GPS. No waypoints. If it wants me, fine." A long silence. "I just want to know what took her." The screen faded to black. No credits. No goodbye. 3 days later, a park ranger on routine patrol found a silver Toyota parked alone at the trailhead near Copper Ridge. No note, no gear, just the keys still in the ignition, and a photo tucked into the dashboard. Aaron's favorite one stillness. Search teams were deployed, but this time the effort was quiet. No press briefings, no helicopters, just silent calls, whispers in hallways, and a single name added to an old list. Rachel was the only one who said it out loud. "He found her," she whispered. "Or maybe she found him." Either way, Eli Romero was gone, and the mountain remained. There are places we map, and there are places that map us. The Sierra Nevada is both. It carves not only into stone, but into memory. It holds on to things, not just bones or backpacks, but names, stories, echoes. Aaron Maddox vanished in 2014. Eli Romero followed 10 years later, in 2024. Others came before them. Others may come after. Some believe Aaron was taken. Others believe she's still alive, living somewhere deep in the canyons beyond cell signal or sunlight. Some say she became part of the land warning, a watcher, a voice carried on the wind. They say if you stand near the ridge at dusk, you can still hear her. Just past the bend, just beyond the light. Eli's last known image pulled from a satellite backup was a blurred still of the cave wall. But this time, something new had appeared. A carving. Clean. Sharp. Recently etched. ER6. It hadn't been there before. No weathering, no dust. As if the mountain itself had recorded it. There are places that forget. But not this one. The Sierra Nevada watches. And it does not forget.